Last night, on March 9th, Jordan Peterson gave a talk at the National Gallery in Ottawa. The talk was on exploring the psychology of creativity. Protesters, including those in the transgender community, along with Black Lives Matter, came out after the online petition to have the gallery terminate the event failed. In the webpage that calls for the organization of the protest, it says, "The National Art Gallery of Canada has decided to host Jordan Peterson, a bigoted, transphobic psychology professor at University of Toronto, to host a discussion on the psychology of creativity. He has refused to use gender-neutral pronouns, has discredited transgender identities over and over, has denounced Black Lives Matter as an unnecessary movement, and is extremely Islamophobic. If you think this is pretty fricked up, join us in protesting at the gallery before his talk. It's unacceptable for a national institution to support someone with these views and ideologies. Trans people, especially Black and Muslim trans people, deserve to occupy space and to feel safe and accepted doing so." Not just trans people, but especially Black and Muslim trans people deserve to occupy space. Is there a pecking order for who deserves space? Black and Muslim trans people deserve space more than regular trans people? It's this fractionation of these groups into smaller and smaller subsets that is one of the problems for sure. Not much footage is out of the event or the protests yet, but here's a quick look at the protesters that were outside. Well, there you have it. Not much of a protest. Maybe there is hope for us all. The combined forces of the transgender community along with the Black Lives Matter community managed to bring out about 100 people. Maybe the fact that it's not a Black Lives Matter issue at all split up the ability to actually get people behind a single vision and rally for a specific cause. Maybe the fact that it's not a transgender issue at all to Jordan Peterson was the driving force behind the failed protest. In either case, it was good news for everyone. In an ironic twist, one of the protesting members, patting the group on the back in a chat on the protest organizing page, left a link to some press about the protest itself. As you can see, however, the news reporter misgendered the organizer of the protest, referring to them incorrectly as she. Last October, Jordan Peterson was speaking with a member of Black Lives Matter at a rally at the University of Toronto. They had just moved to a spot that was out of the way of the megaphone and loud group protesting Peterson so they could talk.
Right. So I kind of feel like
that you're here.
Yeah.
That's brave.
But so I feel like it's that approach that is also bothering me.
Yeah.
This approach where it's like I'm gonna rationalize this situation as a white man, a white academic man.
Now I gotta stop you there.
Can
You just said.
Okay.
Because I never introduced race into this dialogue. And I'm not treating you like a black woman. I'm treating you like a human being. And so to introduce race into the dialogue, I don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's helpful for what you're after. And that's partly why I'm doing this. I think that our society has become so obsessed with group identity that we're pushing in a counterproductive direction.
Okay, so I think that I disagree with that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I bring my lived experience into everything that I do as a black woman.
Yeah.
The way that I view this world, the oppression that I feel, and the way that I operate and maneuver is very much as a black woman. I was racialized. I've been made aware of my race in a lot of ways. Right?
Are you a student?
No.
Oh. Just curious.
Yeah, I just like to follow.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think it's important to acknowledge your circle of competence.
Yeah.
And so to speak on things in such a sterile way, to discredit it,
What do you
it's
think?
not an
What
argument
do you
for
think
me.
I'm discrediting?
The oppression. They need to talk about it.
No, definitely not.
Oppression.
Definitely not discrediting that. I think that, and I'm glad that you're here, and I think that talking about oppression is just exactly what we need. What we don't need is failure to talk about oppression.
Okay, so what's your main argument? Is your main argument that the legislation needs to be clearer, or is it the fact that they are taking, they're criminalizing people that don't, that they're potentially going to criminalize people that don't
Speak the
have
right
intent?
words.
That don't have
speak
intent.
the right words. That's my problem. They're going to criminalize not speaking the correct words. And we're not going there. I'm not going there. I can tell you that. That's not a good thing.
Okay.
And the fact that it happens to arise out of this particular issue,
Yeah.
you know, the transgender issue, it has to arise somewhere. But I think that the principle that I'm discussing transcends any of the localized elements of its argument.
Okay, so I feel like that is a valid argument,
Yeah.
where it's like, I feel like making sure that the legislation is clear in defining what is hate speech. And
Actually, I just as soon we got rid of the whole hate speech thing, because I think it's unbelievably dangerous to drive people who hate underground and not let them talk. And it's partly because you don't know where they are, and you don't know what they're doing, and you can't refute them.
okay, but so I think where I draw the most issue is like, I was like, okay, the core of your argument makes sense. I can kind of understand it.
Okay.
But where you draw that line, I don't understand. Like
Yeah.
the example you
Look,
use
that's
of
a
not
tough
using
one.
gender
That's a tough
pronouns, like I just don't get it
Yeah?
at all.
Oh, well, I can tell you a bunch of things about that briefly. I'm going to just stick to the one thing for now.
Okay.
I think that we are in danger of crossing a very dangerous legislative line. There are reasonable restrictions that can be placed on what people can say, can't say. But you cannot force people to mouth words. It's not good. And seriously, the transgender issue, there's another issue associated with that. And the issue is that we don't understand the biological or cultural foundations of human sexuality well enough, in any sense of the word, to bring premature closure to the discussion. We are actually doing that. So
In that argument, I don't think it doesn't hold much validity to me, because for a person that is in an oppressed community or that
Yep.
feels oppressed, right?
yeah.
If they're asking for, so to that answer, I said to what end? So to what end? So at the
what
end
end?
of this,
Yeah, that's the question.
right?
That's the question.
But so it's like at the end of all this research,
Yeah. I'm not.
and you conclude whatever you need to conclude in order to rationalize it.
Well,
These,
I'm
like
being.
these people are still in the same reality.
I'm being
still
asked.
the same.
I understand that. I understand that, but
Yeah.
I do not believe that the way forward for those communities is down that path. It's not a path that's going to be good for anyone.
And so this is where I come back to this framework of like
Yeah.
of
Look, I could
operating
be
from
wrong.
a specific place, right? It's
Yeah.
like, so you as a person, as this person that has so much privilege and has never really had to internalize oppression the way that an oppressed community has.
Well, you
Can
don't know
speak-
much about my background, so I wouldn't make presumptions.
Okay, but I'm saying the way that oppressed community has. So we live in a white supremacist society. That's just
Don't buy it. We don't live in a white
okay.
supremacist society.
Okay.
No, look, if you
Can I
think
just
this is a
finish my
white
argument?
supremacist society, you should read some history.
Can I just finish my argument? So this is my argument, and then this is probably where the disagreement occurs.
Yeah.
But so I feel like as that person, you can't speak for a community that has already organized and spoken about what they need in order to.
Why should I assume that the people who are speaking for that community are valid representatives of the community? Merely because they put themselves forward as that? We have a democracy so that people can elect representatives that have credibility. Anybody can stand up and say, I'm representing community X. That doesn't give them legitimacy apart from the integrity of their argument. So I'm not convinced at all that the people who are speaking out on behalf of X community are legitimate representatives of those communities. Just because they happen to belong, like I'm not a legitimate representative of white men. I'm just me. Now I also have to be white since we have to have that discussion. But that doesn't make me a representative of white people. Or it does. If it does, it does it in such a staggeringly peripheral way.
Yeah. No, but it doesn't.
I know you're wrong.
I should stop.
I know who you are, Jordan
You
Peterson.
did a phenomenal job of articulating your arguments, by the way. So keep it.
I was wrong. Keep the girls out. Keep the Roman Empire pure.
I'll follow this.
Yeah, well,
I know right on it.
Yep.
I'm a racial realist. This is real.
A perfectly reasonable discussion between two people wrecked by a shouting protester. I'm not sure about the one holding the phone in the background. She was just dismissing everything Dr. Peterson was saying. The woman he was talking to was fine, though. If everyone would just stop being triggered for 2 seconds and listen, they could see that he only has an issue with forcing people to use words through the threat of criminal action. I hope the broadcast of his talk at the art gallery is published soon. Dr. Peterson has written or co-authored over 100 papers and has been speaking about the arts and creativity for years. Here's a short clip from him speaking at a gallery opening for an artist in 2013.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you've all seen artists do in cities. So when a city is decaying in various places, usually it has to be decaying in a somewhat interesting way. The artists are the first people to pick up on the possibilities that decayed landscape now presents. And the possibilities are usually twofold. One is, well, it's cheap. And that's good for artists because, of course, they never have the money. But the other is that there's a place that could be beautiful again if someone just paid enough attention to it. And the artists are very good at picking out places that are cool but a little on the unsafe side, let's say, or maybe, well, that's a good enough explanation. And that's sort of where artists live, because they have a niche, they have a biological niche, and their biological niche is interesting and unsafe. And then the artists go in there and they civilize it, and then other people can move in. And that's what artists do, and they do that conceptually too. So here's a way of thinking about that, is that we occupy a conceptual space, and it's virtually indistinguishable from the physical landscape, because when you see the physical landscape, you interpret it through your conceptual structures. So the two are very difficult to separate. The part of the world of experience that you inhabit and that you understand is sort of an orderly part. And an orderly part is the part where if you do something and you want something to happen as a consequence, it happens. And so that's the domain where you're competent and your skills produce the intended results. And you can be calm and secure and productive there. But there's a much larger domain that's around that, and that's the domain of things you know nothing about. And that's true everywhere. Like when you come into a situation like this, it's interesting, but it's also somewhat intimidating, especially if you're not all that extroverted, because there's all these people around and you don't know what they're thinking and you don't know what they're doing and you have to interact with them. And that's all unknown territory. And so wherever you go, there's known territory and unknown territory. Those are sort of like the fundamental building blocks of reality. They're chaos and order. And those are the fundamental building blocks of reality. And some people like order, and some people like chaos. And if you like order too much, you're really in trouble, and so is everyone else. And if you like chaos too much, then you're really in trouble, and so is everyone else. They have to be balanced properly, and order has to expand. And artists live on the border between order and chaos. That's their niche. And that's an exciting place to be, because that's where information flow is maximized, because they have one foot in what they expect and what they've mastered. That would be their skill. And Tadeusz is a skilled artist. And I think you can't be an artist without being skilled, although lots of people think that's not true. Those are mostly wannabe artists that think that. And then you have one foot in chaos. And as an artist, you exist there, but as people experience art through you, and also as a consequence of your artistic productions, you also put them there. And people like to be there because that's where all the dynamism is. It's exciting there, although it's also frightening. It's frightening because you don't exactly know what to expect there, and there might be strange demands put on you. So what artists do is expand the domain of order into the domain of chaos. And they do that for everyone. And they don't necessarily reap the rewards for that. When artists go into a neighborhood and revitalize it and turn it into valuable property once again, by the time the value is extracted, the artist will be chased away. So what they produce in terms of economic utility is garnered by other people. But what they do is incredibly important. They civilize us and they teach us how to see.
If you like the video, smash that like button. If you don't like it, leave a comment explaining why. If you have nothing to add,
zero fucks given.